Welcome back everyone, Oz here, and today we got something a little bit different. I've never actually done a compilation video before, but here we are. This is a compilation of a lot of the old Entitled Parents videos that I used to have on my main channel 5 years ago, so a bit of a blast from the past. Most of these have been unlisted or privated with time, but I'm bringing them out of the vault, hence the name of the channel. Anyways, hope you enjoy this blast from the past, and yeah. Don't forget, if you drink gamer subs, use code Oz at checkout. Entitled mother pulls fire alarm in a crowded indoor water park and hurls a cake at security. Hello everyone, I worked for a few years as a front desk supervisor at a hotel attached to an indoor water park. I have lots of stories involving entitled parents, entitled kids, and tons of crazies. But this entitled mom, EM, was one of the worst. I didn't deal with her personally, but I had to deal with her aftermath. The head of security in the water park told me the whole story. TK stands for traumatized kid, WP stands for water park. It was the dead of winter, late February, and due to the freezing cold, the indoor water park attracts lots of families. It was a packed Saturday, but after the check-in rush, the lobby was a ghost town. I was working the front desk alone, shooting the stuff with the security guards when a call came over the radio from the water park. Our head of security, we'll call him Don, was a stocky bear of a guy, and the king of calm authority. He could look at a rowdy group and they'd stop cold, but he knew how to handle himself if they didn't. He calmly walked down the hall of the water park, rookie security guard in tow, and I waited for them to come back with a story. They were gone less than 10 minutes, and the fire alarm starts blaring. I hear Ron yell over the radio it was a false alarm, and to bring the shuttles around to pick up water park guests, and my heart sank. It was past 10 p.m. and at least -10 degrees outside, and a whole bunch of soaking wet people must have walked out into the cold, not to mention a horde of angry guests upstairs. Thankfully, the alarm was diffused quickly and we caught most people from leaving the lobby, and the shuttles circled the building to intercept guests who went outside with the warm blankets. After a bit, Don and the rookie returned. The rookie was splattered with cake and holding a bandage on his hand, and Don dives into the story. Entitled mom was hosting her 8-year-old's, traumatized kid's, birthday in the water park. Our catered birthday package included cake, pizza, and all-day water park passes for the party guests. Entitled mother took that as, "You can watch my kid," and spent the day harassing the lifeguards to bring her fresh towels and drinks, claiming too many seats for her friends and generally ignoring her daughter. The trouble really started around 10 p.m. because the restaurant and bar closed, and entitled mother wanted to go home. She couldn't see her daughter, it was a large park, so entitled mother started screaming and cussing loudly for her to get out of the water. Lifeguards tried to calm her down, but she angrily pushed past them, threatening her daughter. "Traumatized kid, you better get out of the water. You have until the count of 3. 1, 2, 2.5, 3. Security arrived just as she shouted 3. Walked calmly to the wall, and before they realized what she was doing, she pulled the fire alarm. "Now everyone has to get out of the water because you didn't listen. This is your fault, traumatized kid." The lifeguard and security were stunned, but they quickly went after her, and she wobble ran back to the party balcony. "Get away from me. You were too lazy to help her out, so I had to." Mind you, she was wearing a swimsuit and could have easily gone in the park to get her child. The rookie starts going for her. The entitled mother picks up the leftover cake from the party and hurls the tray at him and the lifeguards. When the rookie reeled back in surprise, she tackled him. Dawn managed to rip her off by the scruff of the neck and subdue her, but she managed to get a nasty bite on Rookie's hand. The police were called and entitled mother was arrested for assault, and traumatized kid was taken home by her aunt. I spent the rest of that night calming down furious guests with frightened or freezing children, but it felt good to know entitled mother was arrested. Let me know if you want more, I've got lots. They said she was arrested for assault, but I wonder if pulling the fire alarm falsely was also added onto her charges, because that's kind of a big deal. And can you imagine like putting everyone in the building at risk of dying from hypothermia just because your daughter went off to have a little bit of fun? Seriously. "Give me your wedding ring because my daughter's boyfriend can't afford one right now." Hey guys, so I always thought that the entitled parent thing only really happened with young kids. No, that's not the case. Wife and I just went to the rodeo to see a concert and eat some food that we would inevitably regret later. Cardi B, not a fan, but the wife is. Anyway, you have to take a bus to the actual rodeo because of the various parking places. EP is entitled parent, W is wife, me, the sarcastic asshole. Nice. We are standing on the bus waiting for the stop to get off, and entitled parent keeps staring at my wife's hand. My wife is way too nice and started a conversation. I won't go into a dialogue chat because, to be honest, I don't remember it word for word. However, it went along something like this. Wife and entitled parents started talking. Wife initiated it because she felt uncomfortable with the staring from the lady, and eventually it got to the topic of my wife's wedding ring. We just got married in May. Entitled parent told my wife that she loves her ring, and then asks to see it. My wife looks at me for help, and I, being the firmer in nature, say, "I'm sorry, but that's not appropriate. We don't know you," basically the stuff anyone would say when a random ass person asks to see your wedding ring. Keep in mind, my wife still has it on her finger when entitled parent FaceTimes her daughter. She basically zooms in on my wife's hand and asks if she likes the set. The daughter says yeah, it's cute, and the mom basically goes, "Okay, thanks, bye," and then hangs up the phone. This I do remember word for word because I'm pretty sure my eyebrows hit the ceiling. "Give me your wedding ring because my daughter's boyfriend wants to propose but can't afford one." I looked at her and I swear I laughed for a solid 10 seconds before I realized she was serious. My wife looked at me like, "Who's this bitch?" And I was just overall surprised by the woman. I kid you not, this woman reached over and grabbed my wife's hand. My wife made a fist so that she couldn't get the ring, and I pushed the woman's hand off of my wife and told her that was enough. She started to scream and people were staring, but my wife told the people what was going on and they turned around. No one thought to help. Anyway, the woman persisted to try to get the ring some more, and she looked at us and said, "You can obviously afford it. I'm trying to make my baby's dream come true," or some shit like that. I finally told her if she puts her hand on my wife again, she's going to catch an attempted robbery charge as well as an assault charge. She moved through the bus, but not before I screamed that she was trying to steal things from people, so they should watch out. She made the bus driver stop somewhere random so she could get off. This was the weirdest shit that's ever happened to me. I need to go ahead of you in line. I have a child. You know the drill here. EM is entitled mom, me is yours truly. As the title suggests, I was standing in the line of the grocery store waiting. I was holding a box of Pop-Tarts and 3 tins of cat food. Priorities. I heard someone push their cart up behind me in line, and I moved up a couple more steps to give them room. The person behind me cleared their throat. I remained facing forward because, well, why would I have turned around? The person behind me cleared their throat again, a far more fake and ahem sort of throat clear, so I turned my head to look at them and smile, not quite sure what's going on. I need to get ahead of you in line. I'm sorry, I need to get ahead of you in line. I then look at her cart, which is stacked, and then at the few things I'm holding in my hands and hold them up a bit, before replying, "I just have a few things, I'll be super quick. I have a child with me, if you hadn't noticed. I need to go first." I look again and there is a baby carrier in the front of the cart and the child is fast asleep. Now, if someone had come up behind me in line with a screaming child they were trying their best to comfort to no avail, I would have stepped out of line and let them go ahead of me without them having asked. No question. But to have some lady push up behind me with a sleeping child, a crammed cart of food, and demanding to go ahead of me because they had a child, I'm not so keen, so I shake my head. "No, I'm sorry, I've been waiting here for a bit and I'd like to get out. I only have a few things, so I'll be quick." I turn back around, then face towards the cashier, and the lady behind me starts huffing and scoffing, like she's just totally disgusted with me for being selfish. She shifts her cart around, making pained noises like it was just too much for her to bear with. And I start to feel uncomfortable, and like this wasn't worth the argument, and maybe I should just let her go ahead of me. Then the cashier catches my eye, and she gives me this kind of evil smile, and reaches over and hands me her "please use the next cash register" sign, and asks me to put it behind my things when I set them down. She then calls over me to disgruntled mom and tells her she'll have to get into a different line because she was closing her till after me. Entitled mother lets loose with the curse words, wheels the cart around hard enough that a bunch of stuff falls off the top. Her child, predictably, wakes up and starts crying while she's picking up her things. I'm guessing I looked rather bewildered because the cashier laughed at me and said quietly, "I'm a mom with 3 kids. I hate it when other moms use their kids like there's some sort of disability that entitles them to special treatment." I leave rather happy that not every parent in the world is entitled. That was a pretty wholesome ending there with the cashier. Kudos to her. Entitled parent says since thief wrote his name on the stolen items, he gets to keep them. So we'll set the Wayback Machine to when my son was not yet a teenager. Anyway, my son had a young boy that would come over occasionally. I wouldn't call them friends exactly, but they were young, probably 2 to 4 years difference, and my son was probably 13 at the time. Every time this young man came into our house, something went missing. Little things, but still inconvenient. On this particular day, my son told me that this boy had not only taken several of his Xbox games, but had texted him that he was not returning them unless a fee was paid. Naturally, I went completely ballistic. I took a few deep breaths. We had run-ins with the boys' family before, and because the uncle was no stranger to the criminal system, it usually did not go in our favor. However, this time with the text in hand, I felt we had a little more to go on. I called the sheriff and explained the situation. When they told me that the value of the games put it in a more serious category, as well that they were taken while we were in the home, that this might be more actionable. A deputy arrived, I showed him the text, and we proceeded to walk down to the boy's house. The reception at the door was, as expected, evasive and hostile, with the uncle chiming in with his jailhouse lawyer BS. Eventually the games were found, but at this point, Grandma grabbed them back and started raising a storm. "See, he got his name on them. They his. He ain't giving them back." The deputy showed the grandma the text messages and advised her, as he pulled out the handcuffs, that thief is about to be arrested for theft over $500 and burglary of an occupied structure. Jailhouse lawyer uncle shut up, grandma shut up, thief handed over the games, son checked to make sure they were all intact. From that point on, thief was no longer permitted anywhere near my property. We still had the occasional run-ins with him and his family, but after that they were all considerably less confrontational. Thank you for your time. This is quite literally the reverse of the "I don't see your name on it" thing that kids pull when they take something that's not theirs. Do you guys remember that story last episode about the entitled mother who pulled the fire alarm to get their child out of the water? Well, this same poster is a hotel desk clerk, and they have plenty of fun stories to tell us. And here is one of them. Hotel hell. Hockey entitled dad, HD, threatens to fight head of security, claim they were assaulted by him, and brings aggressive dog into hotel. After my post yesterday, people wanted more, so here we go. I worked as the front desk supervisor at a hotel for 3 years, and the absolute worst entitled parents were hockey parents. Our hotel was attached to a large indoor water park and centrally located, so we were a prime choice for youth sport tournaments. Most sport teams were rowdy, but hockey entitled parents and entitled kids took it to a whole new level. A group of hockey teams stayed with us annually, and the amount of complaints and damage they caused forced us to implement a waiver. Hockey parents had to sign an agreement at check-in saying they wouldn't bring minors in the bar, wouldn't leave minors unattended after 10 p.m., and that they needed to forfeit their hockey sticks at the front desk or be kept in their vehicles, as we could not allow them in the guest rooms. The agreement was approved by their league, and any violation of the rules would be reported and the child would be barred from competing. The rules were strict, but we had backing from the league after we told them about the $10,000 plus damage caused by a hockey parent from their group the previous year. I can share that story too, if you guys want. The entitled parents were furious about the waiver form, most of them screaming things like, "How am I supposed to watch the kids if you won't let them come into the bar?" And "You have adults working in the lobby at all times, right? Then why do I need to accompany them?" They figured we were their babysitters since they were paying for the rooms. The biggest issue was forfeiting the hockey sticks. Entitled parents were cussing out the staff, saying the sticks were too expensive and we might steal or break them. While trying to calm them down, I get a call from the food and beverage manager, saying there were hockey parents sneaking in through the patio entrance with their hockey sticks, heading to the elevators. I realized the bastards at the front desk were causing a diversion. I walked quickly over to the elevator and intercepted the sneaking entitled parents. There were lots of expletives and threats, but I was courteous and firm they were not going to go upstairs with the sticks, and they eventually stormed back to their cars. After the food and beverage manager locked the patio, the rest of the check-ins were still angry, but less dramatic. The next day, I come in to find the head of security, we'll call him Don, my man, still there from the overnight shift. Usually he's gone by the time the AM shift rolls in, but he stuck around to tell me about what happened overnight, and he pulled up the security tapes. The entitled parents were drinking heavily in the bar, ignoring their kids as expected. Around 12 a.m., some of them decided to try and sneak the sticks in again. They already didn't like Don because he made some of the entitled parents collect their unsupervised kids from the lobby earlier. So, when he was sitting in the elevator bay to block them, the entitled parents got ugly. I watched the security footage of the first two entitled mothers giving him attitude, but after a few minutes of complaining, they left. Then, a group of 8 or so hockey dads showed up with more stick bags. One tried to physically push past Don to the elevators, so Don stepped in front of him. The hockey dads surrounded Don, grabbed their phones out to film as they cussed him out and challenged him to a fight. I smiled because part of me wanted to see Don kick some entitled parent ass, but he quietly reiterated that they were not going upstairs with the sticks and asked which one of them would like to ruin their child's hockey tournament by throwing the first punch. This made them back off and eventually they took the sticks back to their cars. Don gave me the rundown on the rest of the less exciting things before he headed out, including a report that a dog was heard growling on the same floor as the entitled parents. Housekeeping later confirmed it belonged to the same hockey dad that tried to push past Don. Fast forward a couple hours and I get a call on the radio while I'm on break that an entitled parent was asking for a manager. At the time, we didn't have a manager for the front desk, so tough cases were handled by the supervisors. In this case, yours truly. When I rounded the corner, who do I see but the star of last night's security footage? Owner of the growling dog. Hello sir, I'm the front desk manager. How can I assist you? I would like to report my dissatisfaction with my stay, and I would like a complete refund because your security guard assaulted me last night. Oh my gosh, I am deeply sorry to hear about that. I will be right around to speak with you. I saw him give a smile to the group of other hockey dads lingering behind him in the lobby, and he followed me to the edge of the desk. I let him spill the whole sob story about he and his friends were walking back from the bar, minding their own business when the security guard yelled at their wives for being too loud. He then tried to stand up for his wife. The security guard shoved him and told him to mind his own business or he could get them evicted. He also threw in that Don swore at his son when he was caught running in the lobby. I don't know what he told you, but he was completely out of line to treat me or my family that way. And I want to be compensated. Given what you've told me, compensation would be completely reasonable, and I'm sorry you felt the head of security was treating you unfairly. But I'm afraid I was already informed of the incident this morning, and his report is very different. Are you calling me a liar? And I reviewed the security footage from the elevator bay. Hockey Dad's face flushed. So I'm afraid I cannot justify compensation when you were attempting to bring in your hockey sticks and threaten one of our staff. Hockey Dad storms off towards his friends, but I catch up to him. Mr. Hockey Dad, before you leave, I wanted to remind you about our policy on pets in the hotel. Hockey Dad rolled around and leaned in, inches from my face. Do you really want to go there with me? I'm afraid I do. Due to allergies and potential risks untrained dogs pose to other guests, only registered service animals are allowed in the hotel. He is trained. He's an emotional support animal for my son, and he's legally allowed to be here. I'm afraid that is not the same as a trained service dog. As long as the dog is well mannered, I have no problem with it since you're out of state, but I have already received reports the dog has been growling at staff. It cannot be left alone in the room, it cannot go in the water park, and there will be an associated cleaning fee for pet dander and fur. If I get another report about the dog, your family will be asked to leave and it will be reported to your league. Heck you and heck this hotel! I just smiled, wished him a good day, and walked back to my desk. Housekeeping sent me pictures of the dog locked in its crate alone. Even though I didn't have any reason to kick him out, I charged him an extra $250 plus tax for a cleaning fee. I think this story basically confirms the idea that the worst kind of entitled parent is the child athlete entitled parent. This is a kids movie, you shouldn't even be here. My girlfriend and I are 21 and 20, and the other week we went to go see How to Train Your Dragon 3. We're both really big fans of the series ever since the first movie, and we've been really excited about the third movie for quite some time. We waited a couple weeks after the movie released, hoping that we could avoid all the screaming of packed children and enjoy the movie. When we had got to the movie, we were wrong. It was packed full of families and small children. Lots of annoying chatter and a few kids running around, but we hoped they'd shut up and sit down when the movie started. They did. Despite it being packed, girlfriend and I managed to snag some good seats before the movie theater really filled up. Enter entitled parent. This lady with two kids goes up and down the aisles looking for some open seats in the middle of the cinema, even though there were open seats to the sides. She spots us and squeezes past everyone in the row to get to us. Excuse me, my children and I would like to sit there. I was a little taken back and thought I misheard her. I'm sorry, what? My children and I would like to sit there. I'm sorry, but my girlfriend and I are already sitting here. Can you please get up so we can sit there? No, sorry, we got these seats. There's some empty seats over there. Yeah, no, we're not sitting there for the movie. We want to sit here. My girlfriend and I are sitting here. Even if we did move for you, there's only 2 seats and there's 3 of you. If you wanted to sit here, you should have come early when there weren't any people here. Now the movie is starting shortly. Good luck finding a seat. Please just move so we can sit down. This is a kids movie. You shouldn't even be here. Lady, please leave us alone. Aren't you just the rudest little brat? No respect. Whatever. They left and we enjoyed the movie without a hassle. After the movie, as we were leaving, we saw the lady speaking to some of the cinema staff whilst giving us dirty looks. We didn't bother sticking around to deal with her, so we just left. On a personal note, I can kind of relate to OP here because I also kind of grew up with How to Train Your Dragon. It came out when I was 10, so, you know, there's that. Moving on. Entitled parent lets sick kid loose on cruise, ruins everyone's vacation. 2 or 3 years ago, I went on a cruise with my mother and my friend with his mother. We grew up together as our families are really close, so we're practically like siblings. This was an 8-day cruise departing from New York City, going around the Caribbean, and then going back up. The ship was one of those really nice, famous ones with tons of restaurants, pools, water slides, etc. It had a capacity of over 2,000 guests. On the second day, our parents made friends with another group of families. We decided to head out together that day once the boat pulled into port. We met at breakfast to plan the day. There were quite a few families with younger kids, and of course, all young kids left to their own discretion at open buffets were wild and kind of gross. Later on, I overheard one parent, entitled parent, complaining to someone about their kid. Apparently, kid wasn't feeling well and hadn't wanted to come, but entitled parent didn't want to leave him behind to laze around in their room, as they had spent so much money to go out and have fun. I didn't think of it as something too serious, so we carried on. Around halfway through the day while hiking in the middle of nowhere on some small mountain, I started having serious stomach cramps. They got to the point where I would have to stop and breathe every 10 minutes or so. My mom and my friend decided to leave the rest of the group to help me back to where our tour bus was waiting, as I was clearly in no condition to continue hiking. It took us a while since I was in so much pain, but eventually we got back on the bus where I could attempt to sleep and wear it off. We assumed I had gotten food poisoning or ate something bad. What we hadn't known and found out later was that the freaking kid from earlier wasn't just not feeling well, he had norovirus. Symptoms include severe vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, muscle aches, fever, and fatigue lethargy. It can last days, which doesn't seem long, but keep in mind that it was an 8-day cruise, and it is extremely contagious, especially in close quarters. Well, guess what? We just happened to be in a closed-off ship with thousands of people with open buffets just waiting to be contaminated. By the next day, 3rd, I wasn't the only one not feeling well. Everyone in our room had gotten it. My mom, my friend, his mom. There was a small line in the front of the clinic by the time we got there, including a couple of the families who went on the hike with us. Literally everyone suffering from similar symptoms. The medical staff gave us some sort of Tylenol-esque medication and told us to stay in our rooms for the next while, so we didn't pass it to anyone else. We listened to them, entitled parent did not. Entitled parent continued to take their kid around to the water slides, buffets, shows, despite everyone warning her not to. Her son was still very much sick, but she wanted him to have the best experience on his first ever cruise. On the 4th day, word of mouth told me that it was quickly spreading. The crew started offering free movies and in-room catering for those who were sick, in a futile attempt to keep them in their rooms. Live shows were canceled because even the performers were getting sick. On the 5th day, the crews announced that they could not dock the ship at the stop of the day. Local authorities had heard of the outbreak and forbade us from entering the port. Everyone was in a lot of pain. I could barely hold down water without throwing up, felt dizzy if I did as much as stand up, and just in general felt like utter absolute crap. I had Tylenol and rest though, and by around the 6th day, both my friend and I were well on the mend. We dared to spend a few minutes outside. No openable windows in the room made us crave fresh air. The population outside was decimated. If you've never been on a cruise before, it's like a mall on Boxing Day. There are people everywhere, talking and laughing and eating and doing whatever you do on a cruise. But that day, the ship was almost empty. Other than some employees wearing gloves and face masks, and a few lucky stragglers, we probably saw around 100 to 200 people, in comparison to the 2,000 person capacity. In order to have a good time, entitled parent let her kids spread the virus to almost everybody on the ship. There is no vaccine for norovirus, so literally no one could have been safe. Not to mention, cruise ships always have many retired elderly with lower immunity levels. She didn't just ruin literally everyone's vacation, she put people at genuine risk as well. I don't think her son should have even been allowed to board the ship in the first place if they had known he was sick, as I believe there are some regulations about bringing contagious diseases into the closed environment. Anyhow, moral of the story is, don't take your sick kids on vacation. If you do have to, for some reason, at least leave them in the room and let them recuperate instead of passing it around. It's not only better for everyone, it's better for them too. Also, avoid open cruise ship buffets if possible. Most have at least 1 or 2 free decadre restaurants options for all 3 meals. Here are the edits if you have any questions on the story, because there's probably quite a few of them. So my major problem here is the fact that this woman took her child around the cruise ship while he was feeling like this. I mean, we literally had someone who was an adult suffering to the point where they could barely get out of bed, where they could barely stand up, where they couldn't have food, and this poor kid was getting dragged around the cruise ship while feeling this pain, having to go down slides, choke down food, stand around for a concert. I mean, that kid must have been in agony, and their mom's like, stop faking it, you're just trying to be lazy. But on the bright side, every Thanksgiving and every Christmas in front of every family member, this kid's gonna be able to go, hey mom, remember that time you forced me to go have fun and I got 2,000 people sick with a really bad virus and ruined their vacations? Remember that, mom? Yeah, you remember. Her kid almost killed a 5-year-old me at the pool. And there's a twist in this tale. This is a story that my dad told me about since I was 5 years old at the time. But I especially remember one part of it because that was the part where I nearly drowned. In the mornings during the weekends, the local swimming pool would host a private swimming club called the Dolphins for young kids aged 4 to 9 to teach them how to swim. The lessons lasted from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and during this time, they wouldn't let anyone in unless they were part of the Dolphins. My dad used to bring me to the Dolphins every Saturday morning, usually after the lesson was over. The kids would be allowed a half an hour to play in the water before they went home. Some parents would sit on the benches next to the pool and watch them swim, and others were in the pool with their kids. On this particular day, the lesson was about practicing holding our breath. After lessons, I decided to practice holding my breath underwater. The exercise I did was to try to sit at the bottom of the pool at the shallow end, 1 meter deep, and stand up when I needed to take a breath of fresh air. On this particular instance, I was feeling brave, so I sat and tried to hold my breath as long as possible. Suddenly, I heard a splash above my head and looked up, and there was this giant rubber floating mat above my head. This thing was as big as a queen-size mattress. I was running out of air, so I stood up, and my head hit the floaty. I tried to push it upwards, but this thing was ungodly heavy, especially for a 5-year-old. I couldn't stand up, so now I couldn't walk along the bottom of the pool. Now I began to panic. I tried to get out from underneath the floaty, but I couldn't swim yet, so I tried to crawl out, but I barely moved. I frantically started to flap my arms, thinking that I was swimming, but I didn't move. My dad, who had been watching me, noticed my frantic splashing and dived into the pool, shoved the giant floating mattress out of the way, and pulled me up out of the water. As I surfaced, I heard another splash and saw an 11-year-old looking kid fall off the floating mattress into the water. The mattress was so goddamn heavy because he was sitting on it. I started to sob from the shock and from inhaling chlorine water. The kid pulled himself out of the water and ran over to the benches. Enter entitled mother. She started screaming at my dad for pushing her precious angel into the pool. My dad is pissed and starts screaming back at her that her kid plopped his floating mat on top of me and that I could have drowned. The lifeguard saw the whole thing and came over. Hey, what's the problem? Her kid dropped his float on OP. She couldn't get out from under it, she almost drowned. Did he do it deliberately or was it by accident? Of course he did it deliberately. Why would he not? He was just playing. You're not allowed to do anything that could endanger other swimmers. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. But why? My little angel is allowed to do anything he wants. He sits on his mat on top of other people all the time and he never gets in trouble for it in other pools, so why is it an issue here? Because it's dangerous, especially to non-swimmers. You can hear the gears in entitled mother's mind turn as she processes what's just been said to her. If she can't swim, then she has no business being here. Why would anyone bring a kid to a pool if she can't swim? Because she's a dolphin, that's why. Are you stupid? She's not a dolphin, she's a kid. No, the Dolphins is the name of our swim club. She's taking part in our swimming lessons. Though, your kid must be a part of the Dolphins if he's here. No, my kid isn't part of those stupid dolphins. Suddenly, the lifeguard's eyes go wide. Plot twist, entitled kid isn't part of the Dolphins. He almost drowned me and he's not even allowed to be here in the first place. Why are you here then?
I just wanted to take my kid to have some fun. Is that so much to ask without being wrongfully harassed?
The swimming pool is closed to the public while the dolphins are on. You're not even allowed to be here. How did you get past the front desk?
I can come here whenever I want. Why can't you just let, little brat, play?
Because these are private lessons. Go home. Then entitled mother starts spouting BS about how kids who can't swim shouldn't be allowed to be in a swimming pool, and we are selfish for hogging the pool to ourselves, and blah blah blah. Apparently, entitled kids shoved me back into the water, and I freaked out again. After that, the lifeguard escorted them out while she and her kid were screaming obscenities at us. My dad took me home and he put on Finding Nemo for me so that I would be less afraid of the water. Entitled parent tells me to clean up her child's mess. This is unfortunately real. This took place around a year ago. Bit of background context, I live in a divorced family and I switch off between my mom and my dad's houses. My dad remarried the woman who is now my stepmom. She's an EP and my stepsisters are more important than I am to her. My stepsisters are also 7 and 3. My stepmom asked me to build some of my old Legos to sell them, which was fine by me because I didn't play with them anymore and I like building them. I had just come back from my mom's house and was at my dad's. I went down to the basement to play some PS4 after a stressful week of finals at school. I come down to find the basement looking like a Lego war. Apparently, I had left some of my bins of Legos out and forgot to put them away. So I walked back upstairs to ask my stepmom what had happened.
You left your Lego bins out so the girls played with them.
And you didn't tell them to clean it up?
No, isn't it your responsibility?
Yes, but shouldn't my stepsisters clean it up because they made the mess?
Quit talking back.
I'm not. I have a slight stutter.
Yes, you are.
I swear to God I'm not.
Yes, you are. Now go clean up those Legos or give me your phone.
I'm not gonna do either of those things because 1, I didn't make that mess. 2, you don't really have the right to take my phone.
Go get me your phone now. No phone for a week.
Okay, fine by me. I walked up the stairs to get my phone, but what she didn't know is that my phone was in my pocket. Walking slowly so I could tell my friends not to text my phone for the next week.
I'm calling your father.
Why?
You have no respect for us whatsoever and you need to be punished.
That's not true. I'm just not cleaning up a mess that my stepsisters made. They should clean it up, not me. I had a stressful finals week and I just wanted to play some video games with my friends.
Looks like you're not going to be doing that for a week.
That's not fair.
Life's not frickin' fair. Now go to your room.
I stumbled upstairs pretending to be upset, but my stepmom forgot to take my phone. So I called my mom and asked her if I could spend the weekend at her house. She said yes, and I went on with my day.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk and my 7-Up votes.
Entitled mom and her entitled son try to take my gaming and server programming PC. Here's my entitled parent and child experience. EM is entitled mom, EC is entitled child, me is obviously me. I'm now 14, but at the time I was 11, so here we go. I'm a PC and computer nerd, and that's how I was raised, with technology. My dad knows a fair bit about it, so he always taught me about it. I had at the time a gaming PC, but I sold the GPU, and got a server-based processor and motherboard for a secondary PC to program, do schoolwork on, and other stuff. And saved up for a new high-end $1,800 PC, which I worked hard for. So, people always admire it. Anyway, I have a 3-monitor setup. All monitors are old 24-inch monitors that my dad owned. So 2 for my gaming PC and 1 for my secondary one. And I also have quite a nice PC, so people always admire it. Anyway, we had a party coming up and my room has a TV and a kind of movie theater vibe with a dimmed LED lights. So people were in there sometimes. Mostly the younger folks watching movies. However, that movie theater-like room is the huge closet in my room, which is accessed via the laundry room outside. And I locked the door that goes into my room and the one for it in my closet. So it was a regular little party and my cousin and a friend of his mother, EM, and her son, EC, came to the party. When I go to my room, the entitled child follows and looks at my setup. He is mesmerized as he's only like 9. He asks if he can play Minecraft and I say yeah. And here's where it goes a bit south.
This is cool.
Yeah, I worked hard on it.
Can I have your other PC? No, I use it and need it for the other things that I don't want to put on my main PC. Please? No, I paid very much for this and I am not going to give it to anyone unless they are buying it. You know what? Unplugs the cord to my secondary PC, which has a lot of important stuff loaded on it. What are you doing? I end up kicking him out of my room and he has a breakdown, but I lock it and go down to eat. When I was finished, I go up and this is what greets me. What did you do to my son? Well, you see, he unplugged one of my PCs because I wouldn't give it to him, and now I probably lost a lot of debt. Well, give it to him. No. You're like 11 and I'm 24 years older than you, therefore, you listen to me. Keep in mind, I barely knew this woman, and I am the oldest child in the family. Well, that PC is worth a total of $1,000, so if you pay that, you can have it. Are you mental? Give it to him. She takes the key to my room and unlocks it, then rips off wires and grabs the PC. I was at the time like 5'2", and this woman was like 4'11", so I easily grabbed it from her, put it back, and relocked the room. Mommy, I want it. You have 5 minutes to give it to him or else. Are you up on the clouds? I am not giving it to him as I need it, and that's final now. Entitled mother heads down to tell my mother everything. My mom doesn't buy her bluff and tells her to leave me alone. When the entitled mother and entitled child are leaving, I notice they have something rather shiny and nice and large. My gaming PC. My dad notices though, grabs it from them, and realizes that they broke the glass panel. They storm off, however we know where they lived, and made them pay $30 for a new panel. The case has custom panels, so it would be pretty replaceable. And that's the end. Also, some cables were broken as they pulled them, but I had a spare. Anyways, this is my story. I hope you enjoy. Who are you and why are you in our pool? This was back in the days when you'd play with whichever other children you could find in your neighborhood until the streetlights came on, and then you'd run home before your mother started yelling for you to come in for dinner. I lived in one of the fairly nice homes in a newly built street where all the homes were more or less the same and all had a pool, including ours. A few streets away, the houses were much less new, but I would frequent the park in the center of them. I made friends with another girl, friend one, who lived next to the park. Her house did not have a pool, so on hot days she would knock politely on our door and bring a snack for us to share, and we would play in my pool for hours. There was another girl, entitled Kid, a bit younger than us, who would occasionally join us playing in the park. She lived another few streets away from the park, but friend one was familiar with her and her large family of brothers and sisters who were both much older and younger than her. Friend one was very kind and would let entitled Kid play with us, but would never let her follow us back to her house and discouraged me from doing the same. Friend one told me that she and entitled Kid had been really good friends that previous year, but entitled Kid had stolen her favorite Barbie and had never given it back. A few weeks later, entitled Kid and I had become good friends despite friend one's warning. On a very hot summer's day, I invited both friend one and entitled Kid over to enjoy the pool. Friend one showed up with her usual snacks and toys for us to share, but when entitled Kid showed up, she appeared at our side gate with not one, but 5 members of her family. 2 of her younger siblings, maybe around 5 years old, and her 2 older siblings, a teenager and another a few years older than us, all of whom ignored me and barged straight past me to dive into the pool and started playing around and making a mess. I remember I was a little stunned and went inside to let my mother know we would need more sausages on the barbecue for lunch for my friends. Of course, she wanted to know why. I could only tell her that entitled Kid had brought some friends. My mother was stunned and asked me if I had invited them. When I said no, she stormed straight outside and told them that only entitled Kid was invited, that she was fine to stay, but that they were rude to invite themselves and that there was no way it was safe for the 2 5-year-olds to be unsupervised. I remember the teenager had a few words to say, but my stepfather stepped in and told them to go home. Entitled Kid was dragged out by the teenager and left scowling daggers at me. A few days later, friend one told me a lot of the nasty things entitled Kid had been saying about me to her and the other children who lived in the area. I was so upset that I told my mother, who immediately took me over to entitled Kid's house to talk it out. Entitled Kid's mother, EM, answered the door. I remember she invited us in, and I remember both mothers insisted we children apologize to each other for any mean words and that it was just a misunderstanding, etc., etc. All better now. Entitled Kid and I played awkwardly for a little while our mothers chatted and had tea, as mothers do. Less than a week later, my mother, stepfather, and I returned from being out for the day and heard whooping, yelling, and loud music in our backyard. We walked in to find the back gate wide open, an entitled kid and her entire family. I mean, herself, her siblings, mother, aunts, uncles, at least 20 people, all fully clothed, messing around in our pool. There was food and rubbish and bottles absolutely everywhere. I remember my stepfather going red and immediately start yelling for them to get the hell off our property. I missed most of the argument. My mother sent me away so I couldn't hear the language that was being used, but I remember entitled mothers screaming abuse and calling us names. The G-rated version would be rude white trash snobs. Later, my mother explained to me that according to entitled mother, somewhere in their conversation about the misunderstanding, my mother had somehow given the impression that since entitled kid was welcome in our home, therefore it must be open to their entire family. So they decided to celebrate an aunt's birthday in our backyard without asking us. We were terrible people for ruining the aunt's birthday party. Needless to say, my stepfather had to threaten to call the police before they would leave. Entitled kid never spoke to me again, and her younger siblings would throw rocks and sticks, etc. at friend 1 and I if they saw us at the park. I feel like there's probably a lot of people who at least know one person in their life who's done this, but I don't think it ever reached this extent where it turned out their entire family was like that. I mean, oof. The worst human I've ever met. Crosspost of mine from r/ProRevenge. They reckon you guys would like this one. So this happened yesterday. I'm not working at the moment, but I've been trying to keep myself busy by offering to help people in my family and friend circles, giving them lifts, helping them move, etc, etc. All in all, I consider myself a pretty generous person. Yesterday, my brother finally managed to get a few days off work, and he was going up to the coast with some friends for a nice relaxing getaway for one of their birthdays. He'd asked me weeks before if I could give him a lift, as he had chef school that day and wouldn't be able to get a lift to the house with his friends as planned. I said sure, no problems. The day comes around. I pick him up early as he finished quick, and we get on our way. The drive wasn't bad, took about 1.5 hours, and we just chatted and listened to music all the way there. It was a nice drive. At this point, it was around 4:30 p.m. by the time I dropped him off and turned around to go home. I probably got halfway home and I see someone parked up on the side of the road, waving me down. So I decide to pull over as a few cars ahead had already driven past without stopping. They dodged a bullet. Enter entitled parent and her POS kid. Can I help you? Me, looking confused since she waved me down. I thought maybe you needed some help. Is everything okay? No, we ran out of petrol. Oh, okay, that's a pretty easy fix. The next town I knew had a service station as I passed it on the way there, and it was only another 5 kilometers up the road. I can drive you into the town to get petrol and bring you back here. Okay, she says simply, her son picking up some of the gravel by the roadside and throwing it into traffic, 60-mile-per-hour highway. Hey, don't do that, champ, it's dangerous. She had gone to her car to grab her purse, but reeled out as soon as I said this. Don't you speak to my son like that? Sorry. I get into my car, followed quickly by the obnoxious pair, highly regretting my life choices by this point, now feeling I can't redouble on myself given how difficult she has been at me helping her. She sits down and immediately scoffs, looking at her feet. Why is your car so dirty? Sorry. I used to put my work boots down there, so it got kinda dirty over time. You could clean it up, you know. I laugh nervously and just nod, pulling away and wanting this to be over with as fast as possible, of my phone in the center console, and she grabs it up. Can I call someone? My phone ran out of charge. That's why we were stuck out there. Oh, yeah, go ahead. I have unlimited calls, so I really didn't care. Either she thinks the person on the other line can't hear her, or she's trying to contact them without the use of the phone because she is shouting. Meanwhile, her son suddenly leaps up between the 2 front seats, looking out the front window. I quickly slow down a bit in shock. Whoa, put your seatbelt on, dude. The mother just glances at him and pushes him into the back seat, and I have to tell him to put his seatbelt on again before he actually does. I'm seething at this point, but I could already see the town ahead, and she thankfully only had a short conversation and put my phone back. We pull up to the pump without issue, but she sits there for like 10 seconds giving me this quick sideways glance with her arms folded, and I don't even have to ask if this lady wants me to get gas for her. I know she does. And then I think, I didn't know if this was going to work, but I wanted to try, and here I am. I get out of the car and grab a 5-liter jerry can they had for sale. holding it up for her approval, and she nods. I fill it up and walk out to the passenger side door and open it. What? Oh, I just wanted to know if your son wanted to pick out an ice cream. I know it's a hot day today. She looked shocked for a moment and for the first damn time smiled. The kid practically leapt out of the car, and much to my happiness, so did she, and followed him in there. I walk in, put the jerry can onto the counter as he quickly comes up with his ice cream. Oh, 1 second, I left my phone in the car. It has my debit card in it. I smile as soon as my back is turned to them, getting into the car and casually driving off, relishing in the sight of her running out of the service station screaming who knows what profanities. All in all, it only ended up costing me about 20 minutes of my time, but the feeling I got as I drove away was priceless. I wonder how long it took them to get back their car. I got home fine and a solid gold story in tow to tell my family. Best drive ever. I only hope the poor guy running the servo didn't cop it too bad from that crap storm of a human. At first I felt kind of bad for the entitled mother, but then I read the story again and I kind of realized that for someone to be such a jerk to the person who's trying to help them, that's like a special level of entitlement, almost to the sense of believing you're royalty. So maybe she did need to take that walk and kind of step herself down a little bit from her high pedestal. Your yard is now our park. My partner and I purchased the house next door to my best friend. I had lived with him for close to a decade when his kids were babies, so they viewed my house as an extension of theirs, and were in and out all day, every day. I have a more flexible schedule than he and his wife, so I have them in the mornings, after school, and on days off of school. I had a pool in my backyard, and because my friend's kids were still little, I installed a retractable cover and made sure it was locked so they couldn't open it. My friend's yard had one of those wood fort climbing wall swing set deals and a large sandbox. Throughout the year, we spent most evenings outside, grilling, drinking, and watching the kids play, swim, whatever. One summer day, I came home from work a little earlier than usual and started to prep for dinner. I heard a knock at my back door, which was odd since my buddy's kids never knocked. I went to see who it was and discovered a mom and 2 kids who looked to be maybe 5 or 7 years old. As I opened the door, she informed me that her kids needed to use the bathroom and that I needed to come out and get the cover off my pool. I was confused and asked her to repeat herself, and she said that her kids needed to pee and that they were hot and bored with playing in the sandbox, so I needed to come open up my pool. I asked her why she was in my friend's yard and what made her think her kids were welcome to swim in my pool, or use my bathroom for that matter. She got really crabby and told me that she had moved into the house behind us and that she had watched my buddy's kids come over all the time and I had opened the pool for them. She insisted that since I was willing to open my pool for the kids next door, I should also open it for the children who live behind me. I tried explaining the relationship between my best friend's family and mine. She claimed that it didn't matter that I had known them since birth and pretty much helped raise them. I just needed to get to know her kids too, and it would be okay. I told her no and closed the door on her. She spent a while knocking and fussing at me through the window, and then had her kids pee in a planter on the side of the patio. When I still didn't react, she took her kids back into my friend's yard to play on the swings. I texted him to let him know what was going on, right at the moment he was letting his 300 plus pounds worth of newfies, oh those are big boys, out into the yard without noticing the unwelcome visitors. The mom starts shrieking and climbs up into the fort, leaving both kids on the swings. She starts demanding that we put the dogs inside, and how dare my friend let his dogs out into his yard when her kids are clearly playing there. He tells her to get the heck out and calls the police. When the cops arrive, she puts on the whole waterworks about how her kids are just looking for friends and my buddy's kids are somehow bullying her kids, even though they'd never met, that he invited her over just to let his dogs attack her children, blah blah blah. They eventually moved her back onto her property, then came back later to tell us they warned her about coming back. She lived in that house for almost a year before she and her husband divorced. During that year, I had to replace the lock over the pool cover controls 3 times, have a fencing company remove a gate at the back of my property that was meant to get the lawnmower through, and eventually pay a security company to come check on the yard anytime we were going to be away for more than a few hours. We eventually found her and her kids in our yards repeatedly, but she'd leave when we got home. What finally resolved the issue was my partner catching her in the pool. She told him that she knew the man that owned the house and that he had told her it was okay to swim. He told her he was married to the man that owned the pool and that it's not okay to swim. She apparently had a bad reaction to realizing she was immersing her sons in gay water. We didn't see her again after that. Oof, Nothing like the cherry on top being a little bit of homophobia thrown in there. Entitled mother gets knocked out from random woman for hitting her own child. Hi guys, I wanted to tell you my story of encountering an entitled parent. I was not a direct participant in the story, but everything happened before my eyes. EP is entitled parent, WG is wild girl. So I work in a bank, and if you also work in the banking sector, then you know how many crazy things are happening there, especially in post-Soviet countries. Oh god. One of the usual working days, we are trying to cope with a large flow of customers. No one likes to queue, but even more people do not like those who climb the queue. And here I serve the client and hear some noise in the hall. A woman with her small child swears at once with several people using a fairly stiff language. It turned out that she was trying to get through and people were very unhappy about it. After a brief quarrel and standard statements, "I'm a mother, you must let me without a queue. My child is sick," and so on, without having the desired effect, she roughly grabs her child and runs out into the street. I, having finished my work, decide to leave for a smoke, and as soon as I leave the building, I see how she beats her child right in the middle of the street. I usually do not interfere in other people's family affairs, but I just can't stand a child abuse, and I wanted to stop this horror. But at that moment, when I was approaching her, a wild girl appears, and this conversation happens. "What the fuck do you think you're doing?" Excuse me? I said, "What the fuck do you think you are doing hitting that kid?" This is my child?" This makes it even worse. "What kind of mother are you?" "Who the fuck do you think you are to talk to me like that, little bitch? This is my kid and I can hit him and do whatever I want. Now get lost, you." And at this moment, wild girl goes mental. She just grabs her and starts beating the shit out of EP. I swear, guys, UFC ain't got no shit on women street fighting. The girl lands one really heavy punch and EP just falls like a bag of shit. That was the first time I saw a real life KO. Wild girl then runs because I think she got scared of the consequences for this brilliant punch, and people are starting to gather around the wasted entitled parent. In about 10 minutes, the police come and start looking for the wild girl and ask witnesses about what happened. I unfortunately don't know the ending of this story because I had to go back to work, but I hope wild girl was fine in the end because, you know, violence is terrible of course, but sometimes you need to give people their own medicine. So, contrary to probably what you guys believe, I do read a lot of the comments, so I know what you guys say about these entitled parents. Oh, trust me, I know. And I know for a fact there are a lot of you who are really happy about the end result of this story. So, yeah. Oz Media does not encourage any violence against entitled parents. Please do not act upon any intuitions that you feel while listening to this video. Entitled dad at McDonald's makes an autistic worker feel overwhelmed over a minor inconvenience. So this happened over a year ago and I'll try to keep this short. Also, no promises this will be word for word because to be honest, I don't really remember a lot of specifics. Me equals me, duh. Mom equals my mom, ED equals entitled dad, and AG equals the super sweet awesome guy who this ED heckled for no reason. So my mom and I went to McDonald's to pick up some quick dinner, as people do. Also, this McDonald's has those table markers that you can pick up to have your food brought to you when it comes out. This will make sense in a bit. So we usually go through the drive-thru, but this is the one time we decide to go in just for the sake of it. So we walk in and the guy taking our order is slightly obviously autistic, which is no problem at all. He was a perfectly sweet dude and was very cool. Now, McDonald's is understaffed and very crowded at this point, so this dude is visibly feeling a bit on edge and overwhelmed. After about a minute, he's ready to take our orders, so we walk up and tell him what we want, but as I'm ordering, we hear, "Enter entitled dad." Entitled dad sitting at a booth with his son. "Come on, hurry it up already, man. We've been waiting for at least 10 minutes. "Sir, I'll be with you in just a moment after I take this order." Awesome guy takes my order and it seems to be fine. He comes back in near tears and you could tell he was stressed. "I'm sorry, this happens sometimes at work." "Hun, take as long as you need, it's perfectly fine." Awesome guy thanks her and gives us a smile. So the dad and his son had picked up a table marker, meaning they were asking for their food to be delivered to said table. Awesome guy goes back to grab their food and starts to bring it to them. Entitled dad, while AG is barely on his way over, gets up and speed walks towards this poor guy and just grabs the tray of food from him and shoots him a dirty look. Sir, you have a mark on your table, which means I should bring your food to you. I didn't mean to upset anybody. I'll grab my food when I want. I'm the customer here. Awesome guy looks at my mom and I, clearly not knowing what to do or say. Don't worry about him. Stay focused. You can do this. Awesome guy nods and goes back to taking orders. Fast forward a few minutes and our food is ready. We order to go, so we say bye to Awesome guy on the way out and thank him. Now, Entitled's dad booth is right by the door, so as we're walking, we hear him say some shit about how restaurants shouldn't allow downies, go f*** yourself, to work if they're going to cause issues. Literally, this dude had to wait a bit longer than normal for his food. No biggie, so I turn around and confront this dude. Hey man, cut him some slack, it's busy and they're understaffed tonight. Entitled dad literally ignores me and gives my mom and I the finger. Nice example you're setting for your kid. Entitled dad looks away and goes back to eating. We walk out a bit mad, but happy Awesome guy ended up being okay. Honestly, I don't get why some people have such short patience. Like 10 minutes is not a long time, and while it can be frustrating, it's no reason to heckle someone like that. This one kind of like messes with me on a personal level because one of my friends is actually mildly autistic and works at a Wendy's. So this guy can go freaking jump in a wood chipper. Entitled parent won't let me sit at the front of my mother's funeral. Story happened a few months ago, so the dialogue will not be the exact same. This would have been my second funeral, the first being my father's 2 years ago when I was 12. Let's just say I do not know anything about funerals, and I'm not Christian or Catholic, so I know nothing of the traditional type. According to burialplanning.com, funeral seating guidelines at many funerals, relatives of the deceased sit on the right side, friends, acquaintances, co-workers, and others typically sit on the left. The front rows are reserved for close relatives. Anyway, here's the story. I had just arrived at my mother's funeral. Well, it wasn't that time yet. It was an hour or two before it should have started. My aunt, my legal guardian, helped me set up flowers and pictures of my mom while she made sure chairs were in order. We had decided on a small outdoor funeral that had no workers, just guests. We had the wake earlier, so that was in order. My uncle, blind since birth, was there for emotional support for me and my aunt, rather than helping with adjusting things. There were maybe around 20 to 30 seats, keeping it small on purpose. There are an exact number of seats, with no guests canceling yet. Fast forward to the actual funeral. It was very quiet with only small murmurs and sobs. It was held in a park near a lake that my mother and her parents used to go to fish. The park was a place for reservations, so there were no other people in the general area, besides the barbecue area a far amount away. So you get the idea of how quiet it was. Out of nowhere, we hear a loud engine of a car. The car parks in the parking lot not too far from us. It was a white Subaru with Fortnite bumper stickers all over the back. This doesn't have anything to do with the story, just wanted to add a comedic break. A lady, the entitled mother, walks out of the car with her 3 kids, one of which was a crying infant in her stroller. This story isn't about the kids, who were angels, the baby was adorable and I didn't mind her crying. I looked over at the women and stared confused at my aunt and older cousin. I think that's your mom's friend, entitled mother, my aunt whispers. My cousin and her boyfriend stared at the lady's small soccer jersey, which showed her bare stomach. She walks over to the very front of the seats. She looks surprised, for some strange reason, that 4 empty seats aren't at the front. There are 4 to 5 empty seats at the mid-back left side. I wipe my face of tears and try to smile at her. Hi, are you my mom's friend? Yes, I am. Who are you and why are you sitting at the front of my best friend's wake? 1, how does she not know who I am? I'm my parents' only child. 2, this lady was not my mom's best friend. If she was, I would have definitely met her. 3, this is not a wake. Can I talk to you for a second? Asked my cousin's boyfriend. He pulls entitled mother aside and has her 2 older kids stand at my side. While the other guests chat confused for a few minutes, I talk to entitled mother's kids. There was supposed to be some talking at the front, of course, and it was held back. We have seats over there for you and your kids. There's no more room at the front, which is relatives only. I heard my cousin say to entitled mother. Entitled mother nodded and walked back to her kids. Who are you anyway? She asked me. I begin to talk, but she then readjusts her baby and holds her differently, then begins to talk to her other 2 kids. You can sit over there, she says to her kids, pointing to empty seats. I'll sit in her spot. She then points to me. Uncle, can you start the speech? I plead, hoping for something to happen before I completely engross my time into this woman. He agrees and goes up to the very front of the coffin. Talk to my non-blind uncle just for context. Can you get up? Asked entitled mother. "Why can't you go sit back there?" asked my aunt before I could even answer. "If you keep acting like this, entitled mother, you'll have to leave." "Why do you have to sit at the front? I bet you aren't even a relative, maybe a niece at most. I was, my mom's, best friend and I should sit up there. Why should I sit in the back? That's like for her co-workers," entitled mother said, crossing her arms. Her kids visibly tensed and sent apologetic glares over at me and my family. "She's her daughter," my aunt whisper yelled. Entitled mother's eyes widened and her mouth hung slightly open. She grabbed her kids' arms and yanked them to the back seats. Although this was so much of a scene, we didn't want to make it a bigger one by following entitled mother and making her leave. "Your mother wouldn't have wanted any confrontation," is what my aunt said. My uncle went on with his speech and then called me up, since I was the closest family. During my entire talk, which was long I have to say, entitled mother sent me the stink eye.
Hey, made it to the outro. Don't forget that this whole thing is pretty much brought to you by GamerSupps. Use code EYES at checkout. If you like caffeine, this is basically the thing for you. Not to mention, every sale made using code EYES at checkout gets me a little bit in return. You support the channel by using that code. Plus, GamerSupps isn't chock full of that extra stuff that you would find in a pre-workout blend, so you can get that caffeine that you love without putting stuff in your system that's made for you to be exercising with it, which is phenomenal. I love this stuff. I actively use it. Personally, my current favorite flavor is actually Dragon Fruit Punch or Soda Pressing Pear. These two, love them so much. Drink them on a daily basis, essentially. So yeah, go use code EYES at checkout and support the channel. They also have a section so if you don't like anime, you don't have to have a bunch of degenerate shit.